Looking at this natal chart, which is based on your time of birth, your location of birth, and your exact day and year of birth. So the natal chart is used to, it's really one of my favorite tools to really get to the bottom of course issues very fast in working with the client, because it reveals so much. So as you'll see, it's a circular pie graph, and it's divided into 12 different pie slices. As you'll look in the very center of this circle, you got little tiny numbers, 1 counterclockwise all the way back around to 12, okay? So each one of these pie slices represents a different life area, like marriage, money, career, love life. And then if you'll notice in the pie slices, some of them, not all of them, there's little glyphs or symbols. These are planets, and they show an emphasis of energy in your chart where you're spending more focus. And then the natural next question is, well, what about the houses that don't have a planet? That doesn't mean they're not existent in your life. It just means in this lifetime, you didn't want to spend quite as much energy there. You had other things to get accomplished. Okay, this beige rim on the outside has the 12 zodiac signs. So each house has its own sign, and some of, as I said, some of the pie slices also have planets and things in them. Okay, now I don't do a lot with the asteroids. I do include Chiron. The rest of these guys are planets. Your North Node's not a planet, and Chiron's not a planet, but those two are so important I include them in my chart. And I try not to get overly complicated, because I want my client to be able to understand. And astrology can get really, really deep really fast. So I like to make it where you understand it. Okay, so we've got our ascendant or rising sign is pie slice number 1. And for you, you had Cancer on the rise. There's the little symbol for Cancer. This heavy black line is where the chart begins. So Cancer is on the cusp of this first house. And I'll go ahead and throw this in here. This heavy black cross over the chart marks the angles of the chart, 1, 4, 7, and 10. And whenever you find activity in one of those angles, boy, you are a dynamic person. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 10 planets in an angle. So the angles actually they energize that planetary focus. So you got a lot of stuff going on. And I love doing astrology because no two charts are ever the same. And each time somebody calls and says, okay, this is my birth data, run a chart for me, it's exciting. It's almost like throwing the dice to see how they land. And each chart is so unique, and it's just interesting to see, what we design for ourselves in our lives. There's no accident you chose this exact time to come into this plane. And we're going to go through it, and you're going to be really shocked when you hear all the things and how they correlate to your life. Okay, so the first house, we've got Cancer on the first house. The first house is the ascendant or rising sign, and those words are used interchangeably. Cancer here shows a very sensitive personality. And the ascendant sign, the way I liken it to, is like the filter you view the world through. This is the mask that you wear. When people get to know you, they don't know your sun sign immediately. They meet your rising sign. So you wear a Cancerian mask. Also, the first house shows your early childhood conditions, the family you were born into. It can even give some indication of your physical appearance. So with Cancer on the rise, Cancer is a water sign, which is very emotional and also very intuitive. Now, Cancer is also a cardinal sign, which is a leadership sign. You're very good also with beginning things. You're not one of those people that wants to throw grass seed out and then sit around and watch it grow and mow it. You like to get the initial burst of energy started off, and then you like to move on to the next project. So, and very much a leadership quality. Cancer energy, as I've noticed in my life, you guys make excellent entrepreneurs in addition to leaders. You have a finger on the pulse of what society, of what people are looking for, and you know innately how to market it to them, how to get those needs they have met. All right, with Cancer there, you're very sensitive about your family. In addition, Cancer is the mother sign, so there's usually a very tight connection to mother, for the better or for the worse. I've known a lot of Cancers that have very difficult relationships or interactions with their mother. It's like you see I hear you laughing. You see the Cancer sees the Madonna mother. It's like the ideal. And then you get down here and you hook up with the mom and she's not ideal. And it's hard for the Cancer to process that. But anyway, you've got some good stuff going here. Next, the Saturn, you actually have a planet in that first house pie slice. And the Saturn looks like a little H. And whenever you have planets in this first house, it modifies that rising sign. So with Saturn there, and Saturn is just the opposite of that sensitive, tender, emotional Cancer energy. Saturn says, wait a minute, you got to be tough, you got to be strong. You can't fold on us. So the Saturn actually makes you very stoic, very old when young. It's like you're born a little old lady or a little old man, because Saturn gives you such a seriousness about your life purpose. And when you have Saturn this strong in your chart, anytime it's on an angle, it's strong. It makes you have to grow up really fast. You get here and you're like, okay, I got to figure this out. I don't know that I can depend on these adults around me. I got to figure it out. And so it can be a difficult childhood and early beginning because so much weight is on your shoulders. The good news is Saturn is a time planet, and as time moves on in your life, things get much better. You're one of those people that time is going to be your best friend. And so the lessons were hard won early on in life, but as you get older, you tend to be the responsible one, the person people can depend on, and that's a good thing. All right, but you definitely tend to view the world from a very stoic position, and you need to be careful with this position because you can be very, very hard on yourself. You have very high expectations, and that's a good thing, but you need to make sure you don't beat yourself up mercilessly when you don't quite make the goal. Okay. Your Saturn is in Leo. It's in Leo. With Saturn in Leo, Saturn is the planet of karma, and the Saturn position that we have is there to teach us big lessons, okay? Leo is all about security in oneself, being able to shine in all of your wonderful uniqueness, being able to express your creativity, your ability to perform. It's really good energy, but when Saturn's there, it's like a big dark cloud is covering the sun, and it can make you a little wobbly, like a child learning how to walk, a little bit wobbly on fully being able to embrace that energy. But as Saturn is a time planet, you get better as time goes on. You get better and better and better at owning your wonderful, at owning your power, your personal power. Okay, the second house here is money. It's also values. It's how you make money. Now, you have Leo on this house. So, the Leo obviously is the performance. It's theatrical, it's creative, and it's also leadership. So I would say in your whatever you do to earn a living, it would be important for you to be in a position where you can be noticed, where you can be respected, and where you can shine, especially in a leadership role. All right, third house, communications, the way you communicate. This is also your early educational experiences from K through 12. It's your neighbors, your siblings. You don't have any planets in this house, but you do have Virgo on the cusp of this house. So, the way you learn in school, the way you process acquaintances, the way you handle siblings, if you have any, it's through a very Virgo approach. And you were probably quite intelligent because Virgo is the sign of intelligence and definitely discernment. Being able to take data and take the chaotic data and create order from it. So I would say your communication style is very orderly, very well thought out. You're not somebody's just going to run your mouth just to be saying something. You're probably very deliberate in the way you express your ideas and the way you relate to these other people. All right, the fourth house. This is, if you'll notice, you got some planets here and you have your North Node here. And this point right here, it looks like a little headphone set. This to me is the most important part of your chart because this is your soul's purpose for being in this body at this time in this world. And we will talk about it. The fourth house cusp, remember this is an angle. You have Libra there. This is your private self, who you are at home. This is your family, your roots, your ancestors. It's the home you grew up in, and it's also the home you form as an adult. And it does connect to your mother. Some astrologers argue and say this is Capricorn, the father energy. I disagree with that. This is naturally the Cancer home, and Cancer's about the mother nurturing energy. So with Libra here, This is an interesting dynamic that you have here because Libra is very focused on harmony, getting along, keeping the peace. So that was very much a theme for this family and possibly for your mother wanting to keep the peace and keep things flowing in a harmonious way. Libra also adds beauty and art. So I would say in your own home, especially, now that you're an adult, you would love to surround yourself with beautiful things, artistic things, things that really soothe your soul. And not everybody's like that. Some people, they just have electronics everywhere. They may think that's beautiful. Who am I to say? But I would say you're going to focus more on balance and color and aesthetics. But the funny thing here is with all this peacefulness we're talking about, we got two shaker-upper planets in this house. The first one is Pluto. It looks kind of like a P with a tail. And then the other one is on the other side of that north node, Uranus, that looks kind of like an H with a tail, a big H. Pluto, wherever he or she falls in your chart, shows where major transformation is going to happen. And it's not sudden changes, it's over time. But this is the part of your life that you will ultimately need to transform dramatically. So here it is in the family house and the home house. So within the family, Pluto is also the power planet. And unfortunately, on the negative end, it can be power struggles. You have to understand all of these astrology signs and planets have their high positive aspects as well as their low negative aspects. And the individual has the choice of which end of that spectrum they work on. So with Pluto here, there was a very powerful underlying current of power exchanges within the home. And it can make for a very intense environment, which isn't quite comfortable with this Libra energy. Now, sometimes these power plays come up in sexual arenas where games are played and sex is used as a weapon, where one person wants to have it and the other person doesn't, and then it sets up this cloud of resentment, and then we get into the game playing. So the positive aspect of Pluto is going in, looking at these early tapes that we are all conditioned by, and looking at the patterns of what goes on within this most private of environments, and understanding the power that's bubbling up there that wants to be expressed, and then expressing it in the most positive way. Now, you also have another very changeable planet, which is Uranus in there. And this one is about change too, but it's like sudden shocks and shifts that you didn't necessarily see coming. So in this area of your life, you are really not allowed to get stagnant at all. I mean, it's like anytime stuff doesn't keep growing in this home base, in this family structure, something comes along and shifts things. And I'll just give you an example. Let's say you've got this couple that buys a house and they live in it for 50 years and they watch the trees they plant grow, and it's a very stable environment. This particular home, it may even seem like things beyond your control shift things. You would never have to worry about getting stuck in a rut here. With Uranus, it also shows, this actually does show electronics in the house. But I think this Libra would help balance out. Even if you had a whole room devoted to computers, you'd probably have some nice art hanging around it. But the Uranus brings in unusual people into the home, unusual experiences. Technology very much is a part of the home. Anything on the cutting edge, leading edge is there. But these two power planets would definitely show a lot of excitement and a lot of change within the home. Early on in your life, you may have even found yourself moving a lot with this Uranian energy here. But it's going to be important for you, with all this electrical current going on, to really watch your EMFs and make sure you stay on top of earth rays, electrical overload within the home, because it's already really charged. Okay? Now let's talk about this north node, because this is our big deal. The north node tells me why you came here this time. And it also tells me what you did in past lives. They never print this on charts, but the North Node has an exact opposite, which looks like this symbol flipped upside down, and it's in the exact opposite house. So the 4th house, the opposite is the 10th house, career. So isn't this interesting? You got all this going on up here in career, and you're really moving towards this home base and developing family and close, intimate relationships. So with this North Node placement, it shows me in this lifetime, well, let's go back to previous lifetimes. It'll be easier to segue into it. In past lives, you were very much the leader, very much in the executive position where you were getting things done in your career, your public life. You had all these employees working for you, looking up to you, waiting for you to give them direction. And when you're in the professional world, you're not having to, you're not really focusing on everybody's feelings and relationships. You're working on getting a goal accomplished. So in that lifetime, those lifetimes, you really excelled in how you met the outer world. Now we're learning about those delicate bonds, emotional bonds we have with the people we live with the people we share genes with, our families. So you're learning now how to really engage on an emotional level, not just an intellectual level. And the tricky part is in these relationships, you're no longer playing the dominant role. You're part of the group mind now. You're not necessarily the leader, okay? So that takes a whole new focus for you to learn about. And I recommend that everybody, when they get their astrology chart done, buy the book by Jan Spiller's Astrology for the Soul. She devotes entire 30-page chapters to each nodal position. So you would read the North Node in the 4th house. All right, moving forward. 5th house. You see the 5 right there. 5th house, you've got Scorpio on the cusp. You also have Neptune there, the little trident. And the 5th house has to do with excitement and love affairs and children and creativity. This is like the fun house. When we're dating, the courtship phase, creating things, whether that be children or art or creative expressions. This house with Scorpio on it shows that you are initially attracted to lovers that exude a lot of charisma and power. And remember what we said about Pluto, which is Scorpio's planet. The tricky thing with Scorpio energy is finding the evolved Scorpion energy, which isn't into power plays and gameplay and manipulation. It's into a responsible use of the power that they have, which is dispersing that among other people. But this is a very charismatic individual. Also, your children will most likely have, you may even have a Scorpio child or a child with moon or their rising sign or Pluto dominant in their chart, the first one at least. But the Scorpio energy will run through. Then we have this Neptune here. Neptune adds a little bit different energy here because Neptune is the idealism planet. And from its highest perspective, it's very ethereal, very spiritual, very artistic. From its lower perspective, it's deceptive and maybe even addictive. With this placement, you will need to watch yourself when you find someone you're attracted to. Make sure you're willing to see them as they are and not as your ideal through rose-colored glasses. You really, whenever Neptune is aspecting a relationship house, it's very important that you're clear about the person you're interacting with. Now, with these two placements, you've got someone that's very charismatic, and on the high end, maybe very artistic or spiritually based. I would also say with this placement, it's very, very strong possibility that you will meet one, if not more, soulmates in your lovers. All right, and remember, this applies to your art and your children, any kind of art, creative expression. Your creative expressions are very transformative, and they can bring in a hint of other worlds, otherworldliness, or even divine. Moving on to the 6th house. This is the house of your health and diet, routine, daily living, and work, your service to others, how you take your talents and offer them to others. You have Sagittarius here. That tells me in your work you really, really do need to have constant goals that you're striving towards. And it would be awesome if you could have some movement in your work, whether that be traveling, whether that be just not being stationary during the day, but movement's very highlighted here. And also expressing broader ideas and concepts. Now, let me say this. We have some situations we look at in the chart to describe our health. The 6th house is one of those factors. Now, you don't have any planets there, and that's okay. But the 6th house having Sagittarius there, Sagittarius rules the liver as well as the hips. So those are sensitive areas for you. And you might even be inclined to eat really rich food, and then your liver makes you pay for it. So I would definitely suggest you do plenty of liver cleanses with this position. Also, your ascendant gives an idea of sensitivities in the body. With Cancer, Cancer rules the breast and the stomach. And then we've got Saturn, and Saturn's your entire skeletal system. So whenever you're overloaded, these areas are going to be very sensitized to imbalances in your emotional and your thinking patterns. Your sun is in Taurus, which rules the throat, the thyroid's in there, and your moon is in Pisces, which rules the lymphatics and the feet. Okay, moving on, we've got our 7th house. Since we've crossed this angle from 6 into 7, every house up here at the top of the chart, 7 through 12, have an opposite house below the horizon, 1 through 6. So the 7th house is your marriage house. It's also your very, very close relationships like friendships. It's also business partnerships, and it can be enemies on the darker end of it. But the 7th house is exactly opposite this 1st house. It's like a seesaw. Okay, your 1st house being in Cancer, your 7th house is the exact opposite of Cancer, which is Capricorn. Now, in your relationship dynamics, there's going to be a very strong parental energy. The father and the mother archetypes will be very pronounced in your relationships. So, classical astrology says your 1st house is you, 7th house describes your mate. So, with Capricorn on this cusp, we're looking at a very powerful, even possibly an alpha male, who is very accomplished in the world, someone who knows how to navigate his professional life, his career. He's very, very disciplined, very responsible, and very much interested in forming a very structured family and reputation that the family can depend on for years to come. Wealth, abundance, business, all of these things. It reminds me of the Emperor card in Tarot. So with Capricorn, we've got that strong, fatherly, outwardly professional personality or image. The Cancer over here is very much the home, nurturing, developing relationships, raising a family, creating domestic bliss. But you've got this Saturn over here, and Saturn is Capricorn's planet. So you might be doing double duty here. But what I've seen in charts over and over and over again, you can look back over the relationships you've had in your life. You tend to play one of these roles, the first house or the seventh house, and your mates play the other role. And it flip-flops. It doesn't just stay the same with each relationship. It's like you get a chance to see both sides of the mirror. With Capricorn here, Capricorn is the time and moving through the passage of time. And so with Capricorn here, you may be a late bloomer where it comes to marriage. You could get married at 20. I'm not saying that. But it may take you later in life, late 30s, 40s, 50s, until you really strike that match that really, really works for you in your close, intimate relationships. And this isn't just contractual relationships. This is also living together. You go from 5th house of attraction to 7th house of commitment. All right, the 8th house, you don't have anything here. It's the opposite of the 2nd house. The 8th house, 2nd house had to do with your money. 8th house is other people's money and their resources and how that affects you. You have Aquarius on this cusp. This is also a very metaphysical or psychic house. So when you're interacting with other people's money, say a spouse's income, or say an inheritance, or the IRS, or a bank loan, the energy of Aquarius can be rebellious and it can be erratic. So I don't know that you can depend on other folks' resources. And that's okay, because you got plenty going on down here with this Leo on the cusp of your 2nd house. In addition, the psychic, the sensitivities about you, and we already know you're very psychic with Cancer on the rise, but with Aquarius here, you'll get flashes of inspiration, intuitive hunches, and you're like, wow, where did that come from? And it's from that Uranian, Aquarian energy. Like I said, it's very sporadic. It's not something you can count on, but when it comes powerfully. Your 9th house. The 9th house, remember the 3rd house had to do with early education, the way you communicate, ideas, and it's exchanging ideas. The 9th house is a higher mind post high school education, whether that's college, whether that's specific training you get. But with Pisces on this cusp and the Pisces moon there, you're very sensitive in this area of life. It also includes spirituality, religion, and travel, and foreign cultures and lands. So with Pisces here, you may be very idealistic about this area of your life. It may mean a lot to you, but you may be, I would say, you've probably got a very strong spiritual connection, and that doesn't mean you have to go to church and follow traditional religions, but there's a very strong understanding and connection here a thread here that connects you to other realms and higher sources of wisdom. The moon, wherever the moon falls, shows where we're very sensitive and what helps us to feel our most secure. Now, you being a Cancer rising, the moon is the ruling planet of this entire chart, so it's very important. With the moon in Pisces, that makes you, we already said you're psychic yourself. The moon in Pisces just triples that. This is the most psychic moon placements there are. So with moon in Pisces, the moon represents mama, how she nurtured you, how you nurture yourself and others, and how you process your emotions. It's also your subconscious, and it could be even tying into your past lives. So with Pisces moon, this tells me that you had a symbiotic, again, it doesn't necessarily make it positive or negative, but you have a very symbiotic relationship with mama, and it makes you where you're so psychically in tune with her that it's hard for you to get a grasp on, okay, what are my feelings? What are her feelings? It just kind of blends together. And Pisces is like it's a nebulous cloud that doesn't have defined perimeters. So it's hard for you to realize where her stuff ends and yours begins. And, you know, I can tell you, even from my own self-reflection, I've recently realized that beliefs I've had my entire life didn't even belong to me. They belonged to my mom, and I adopted them. So you may want to look at that. Things you take to be the way it is may not even be how you really feel or think about life. But this is a very intense energy for you to have, especially being a Cancer rising. Now, another positive, wonderful thing here is this moon in the 9th house. I believe your mother really wanted to see you grow and expand in the world. She didn't want you to get stuck. She wanted you to be able to embrace all that this planet had to offer. Moving on to your 10th house. This is a power point in the chart because this is the top of the chart. Whereas the 4th house is the bottom of the chart, the 10th house is the top. And girl, you got some powerful stuff going on here. You have Aries on this cusp. Aries is the leader, is the innovator, is the one that's courageous and fearless about striking out into new territory. Always up for a great fun challenge. Not only do you have Aries there, you got Aries' ruling planet Mars right on that cusp. So with Aries, you got Aries Mars, you got Aries midheaven, which is your 10th house angle. And that lends so much drive to your career and your purpose in life. You came here with a very pronounced direction and idea of where you were going and what you wanted to get accomplished. Very driven. Mars, wherever that lands, shows where you expend a lot of energy. And with Mars in its natural rulership of Aries, it makes it very powerful. For you to be your happiest, healthiest self, you need a lot of physical activity, including sex, in your life. You need to always have fresh new challenges you're fighting for or you're striving for. Because when this energy gets backed up in your system, because it's so alive and energetic, it can cause migraines. It can cause frustrations that lead to blow-ups, angry outbursts. or even unhealthy competition. You know, unhealthy might be competing against your child or your husband or, you know, your mother, whoever. So it really does need an outlet. Also, working with weightlifting's good for you. Working with metal is also good because it smooths out that Aries energy. Now you've also got Venus there. Your Venus is also in Aries. And I don't want to get too deep into aspects and things here, but your Mars and your Venus are holding hands. Mars is the male symbol, Venus is the female symbol. Excuse me. When they're that close, the Venus is the affection and the love nature. Mars is the sex nature. When you come across an individual with these two linking up, it shows you to have a very powerful, charismatic attraction about you. Very magnetic to the opposite sex as well as the same sex. But this energy draws people to you. You should not ever have a problem finding willing mates because it's like you put off these strong pheromones they can't stay away from. And I hear you laughing. So I tell people when they have this placement, because courtship and attraction and all that comes so easy to you, and because sometimes you may mistake someone's sexual attraction for actual real romantic love attraction. You'll always need to watch that, what a person's true intention is towards you. Because when we have this powerful charisma, it's not the other person's fault that they're drawn into that, but it may be used in a healing situation. You know, you hear about this a lot with massage therapists. They get in there and they get these energies flowing and stirred up, and then their person they're working on wants to have sex with them. So you'll need to walk a fine line there. But the Venus, wherever Venus lands in a chart, it shows what this person really loves. I hope and pray that you picked the career that really makes your heart sing, because your professional life is so incredibly important to you. And so with Venus here, the Mars energy, getting back to the sexuality, the Mars energy, like I said, it needs sex to be healthy, not just for enjoyment. You got to have it to get that energy flowing. The Venus here, this can be a little tricky too in Aries, because Venus loves the challenge, but they're not so interested in Aries of sticking around. They get bored quickly. So you'll need to, if you want a long-term relationship, you'll need to find excitement that keeps you interested, because you're like I said, you're somebody that likes to come in and strike into the new, but you're not so worried about once it gets boring and dull or old, you're ready to move on. So it can be a little complicated. The next thing here is Chiron. This little K. Chiron was a Greek god who worked with all the other gods. He was like a teacher for healing. He taught them about the herbs and the minerals and everything. And one day Hercules was messing around and he stabbed Chiron. And it didn't kill him, but it wounded him. And so for the rest of his days, he had this wound, but he learned how to take his wound to help others. The wounded healer archetype is what Chiron is. You have this in your 10th house, which defines your role in society. This is what people know you as. So When Chiron lands, shows where you've had some kind of wound, something pretty painful has happened in this area. And I'll just throw out an example. Say in career, the career area, something wounding might be you work your tail off to achieve a position and then they give it to somebody else. So whatever the wound was, you're meant to use that to guide and teach other people. You definitely play the archetype of wounded healer with this in your reputation house. You have Mercury here. Mercury shows what you really like to talk about and think about. So you got a lot of energy devoted to this house. Your Mercury's in Taurus and your Chiron's in Taurus. And this is your thinking is going to be very methodical, very level. And it also, we got a little bit of an issue here though that alters that. We've got, you see these lines in the middle of the chart? We've got red ones and blue ones. Red ones show where there's some discordant energy. Blue ones show where there's a lovely flow. Mercury in your chart is opposite Uranus. So the natural tendency of a Taurian Mercury is very deliberate, very well thought out, and not erratic or even necessarily spontaneous in their speech. They're very deliberate. But then you got Uranus over here that throws some shakeup in the mix, and Uranus sends you ideas and information, and you may find yourself even saying things and you're like, "Ooh, why did I just say that? I didn't want to say that." But it'll catch you off guard. But your thinking tends to be very brilliant. You have to be careful not to be rebellious with your thinking and your speaking, but you have some really awesome inspiration and ideas that come through to you here. And the Chiron, with that being over the Taurus energy, that also involves your money and your values and what makes you secure. So the wound in the 10th house may have to do around those areas. So people will see you. Here's how people see you in your public life. Very dynamic, a leader, very, could be even very competitive. Also wanting to, now this gets a little tricky. Mars isn't interested in harmony. Venus is. So you've got that dynamic going on there where Mars just pushes to achieve, and Venus is like, hold on, we got to make everybody happy. We can't ruffle feathers. Mars says, I don't care about that. But they see these aspects playing out in you, and then the wounded healer, and then the communicator. Now, we had a French scientist, Michael Gauquelin, do a study many years ago on placements that fall within the 10th house as indicators of career. Now, Mars was in that study. When Mars falls in the 10th house, good Lord, especially right on top of the angle like it is, this shows somebody that has a natural affinity for sports. It's also a planet that comes up for people that are scientists that work with scientific data. So that's interesting. Okay. And while I'm sitting here, let's talk about this. You see these red and green planets on the outside of the wheel in the blue zone? Okay, up there in that 10th house, you actually have Uranus transiting the 10th house right now. And what that means for you is there's major shakeups going in to your career. You may be changing careers suddenly. There may be sudden promotions, but there's something going on that you weren't expecting. And it's good. Even if it looks bad on the outset, it's good because you needed change. Things had started getting a little stagnant, and this is like a breath of fresh air. All right, 11th house. We've got Taurus on the house. We've got your Sun and your Jupiter there. The 11th house shows fame. When the sun is there in particularly, this shows you to be well known by a lot of people. The 11th house is the house of friendships, groups, corporations, large masses of people. Your sun shows where you shine. So here you are, you're a Taurus, but your sun in this 11th house gives you a lot of recognition and a lot of respect. So with this sun here, now Taurus sun, you guys are the builders of the zodiac, and we can count on you. We can depend on you because you guys are solid. You're not shifty. You're very dependable. And Taurus are here to teach the rest of us how to find stability out of structure in our lives. The tricky part with Taurus is allowing change to happen, because when you get too structured and too stable, it can become stuck in a rut. So this is where we need to, look at. Now, I laughed when you first contacted me because your sun is exactly opposite my sun. I'm born on November 12th. You're born on May 12th. So you and I are literally, as far as sun signs go, we're two sides of the same coin. Now, with this placement, with the sun here, in addition to this nice 10th house energy you've got going on, I hope you're in a very public situation where you're in a leadership role, because you have a powerful impact and influence on people. Your Jupiter here is your luck. Jupiter is the lucky planet. Venus is lucky too, but wherever Jupiter lands shows where you're really expansive and optimistic in that area of your life, and so naturally you see luck. With Jupiter, your Jupiter is actually in Gemini, which gives you lots of luck with communications, speaking, writing, talking, teaching. It's there. And it's in this 11th house. This also shows the kinds of friends you attract. You may attract Leos, Aries, and Sagittarius because you're drawn to their powerful magnetism as well as their optimism and willingness to see the big picture and be expansive. You should have luck where groups are concerned. Now, let's see. Your Jupiter is in a harmonious aspect with the Saturn down here in the first house. So that lends support to your visions, to your lofty goals and dreams. The 12th house, this is our final house in the wheel. This is your subconscious. This is also really, really private, where people are put away out of the public view. This is like hospitals or even prisons or asylums. But this has to do with the deep subconscious. It has to do with your dream time, when you go to sleep at night. It also shows what you can do when you're by yourself to recharge and unwind. With Gemini on this house, we don't have any planets here, but Gemini's on this house. So reading books, gathering information, studying, playing crossword puzzles or mental games. This will help you unwind and recharge because you've got a very dynamic life. And so knowing when to charge up and rest and relax is very important for you. Okay, let me look real quick at these progressions and transits and see if there's anything I want to talk about. Your sun, the green out here, going into the 12th house. This is your sun progressing into the 12th house. At this time, I would very much pay attention to my dreams that I have, because that is your subconscious talking to you, giving you guidance. Also, this will be several years, and this may be a time where you notice you are allowing yourself to move out of that public spotlight 24/7 and move into a more peaceful, restful, recharge phase of your life. Saturn is over here going through the 6th house of health. Pluto's been there for a while. Saturn's moving through there now, and Saturn is going to require you to restructure how you do your work, how you manage your time, how you manage your diet and your health. Exercise is going to be important. I'd also make sure I'm taking calcium at this time. Pluto's been there a while. It's probably really done some upheaval in this area of your life. And now Saturn's coming back through to tie up the loose ends. Jupiter is now moving through your 4th house, and we often see people remodeling or changing residences, moving when this happens. And it's giving you an expansive, optimistic view of your life, of what's coming up for you. And our foundation, our home, if you know anything about feng shui, when we feng shui a house, we look at that house as a reflection of all these other areas of our life. So Jupiter moving through there is giving you a lot of get up and go and optimism towards the future. So you may actually see yourself changing your environment, which will in effect change the other areas of your life. Okay, I think... Oh, one last thing. Neptune up here. I really tend to look at the outer, slower moving planets when I talk about transits and progressions. Progressions are slow, but the longer transiting planets I tend to look at because you're going to really notice the changes that they make to that area of your life. You have Neptune going through this 9th house. It may bring in even a deeper spiritual reality for you, a deeper understanding of your higher values. 39 years old, you're in your Uranus opposition. Here's Uranus. Here, Uranus is right now transiting your 10th house. It's almost directly opposite your natal Uranus, which is in the 4th house. This happens for all of us between 39 and about 41. We have this cycle. And this is probably what drove you to call me to begin with, because you were feeling this change, this major change about to happen in your life. And for you, it's happening in career. And so at this time, it's like your soul steps in and says, look, you've been living your life a certain way all these years. You've done what everybody expected you to do. You know, you may have gotten married, had kids, had this career, bought the house, you know, all these standard societal things. But now it's time for you to be uniquely you. And I encourage people when they come to me, especially at this age range, please make sure you take this opportunity, this new door that's opening up for you, and go for your heart's desire. Take the leap of faith. Whatever you've always wanted to do all these years that you weren't able to do, now is the time. You've got this big, beautiful blue triangle. That is, not all of us are lucky to have that. That's called a grand trine. And your grand trine involves Saturn in the 1st, Neptune in the 5th, and Mars in the 10th house. A grand trine is a very lucky flow of energy. And like I said, I don't see them, maybe 1 or 2 out of every 10 charts I look at. So you're very much blessed with the talent, the creativity, and the drive to achieve your goals. So remember that. All right, honey. Blessings to you. Thank you very much for calling.